This is Sri Lanka, an island nation with ancient cultures, diverse people, and a recent history marked by civil war. The Sri Lankan Civil War lasted 26 years. From 1983 to 2009, it divided the country, destroyed lives, and left wounds that remain today. It began with history. During British colonial rule, the Tamil minority, especially those in the north and east, held many positions in education, administration, and the civil service. And this wasn't by accident. The British relied on English-speaking Tamils to help run the colony. When Sri Lanka, then called Ceylon, gained independence in 1948, power shifted. The Sinhalese majority formed the new government. Over time, they passed laws aiming at strengthening the Sinhala identity, but these came at the expense of Tamil rights. In 1956, the government under Solomon Bandaraniki passed the Sinhala-Only Act, which made Sinhalese the sole official language of the country. Tamils who had worked for the state suddenly found themselves shut out. In addition, university admissions policies also changed. Quotas favored Sinhalese students even if they had lower scores, and many young Tamils saw their futures vanish overnight. Peaceful protests followed. Tamils demanded language rights, fair access to education, and equal political representation, but instead of reform, they were met with police crackdowns and Sinhalese nationalist backlash. By the 1970s, frustration turned into armed struggle. Several Tamil militant groups emerged, and one of them would come to dominate, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, known as the LTTE or Tamil Tigers for short. Their aim was bold and clear, to carve out an independent Tamil homeland in the north and east. They called it Tamil Eelam. Led by Velupillai Pravakaran, the LTTE quickly became a powerful insurgent force. They used guerrilla tactics, assassinated officials, and pioneered the use of suicide bombers, including the invention of the suicide vest. The group also recruited and used child soldiers. The war officially began in July of 1983. After the LTTE ambushed and killed 13 Sinhalese soldiers, violent anti-Tamil riots erupted. Tamil homes, shops, and temples were looted and burned, and hundreds of civilians were killed. The violence became known as Black July, and for many Tamils it marked a moment where war seemed unavoidable. Over the next 2 decades, the war ebbed and flowed. The LTTE took controls of large parts of the north and east, and they ran their own courts, police, and tax systems. The Sri Lankan government responded with military offensives, and both sides refused to compromise. In 1987, India stepped in. The India Peacekeeping Force, or IPKF, arrived to enforce a ceasefire, but it quickly turned into a direct conflict with the LTTE. By 1990, India withdrew, and in 1991, an LTTE suicide bomber killed former Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in Tamil Nadu. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, the war escalated. The LTTE assassinated President Premadasa and opposition leader Gamini Dissanayake. They bombed banks, trains, and city centers, and civilians often paid the highest price. The government launched major offensives, trying to retake LTTE-held areas. Both sides were accused of war crimes, killings, disappearances, forced recruitment, and attacks on civilians. But in 2004, disaster really struck.
Good evening. The depths of the Indian Ocean have spawned a natural disaster enormous in scale. The devastation is so widespread, it's almost impossible to fully gauge tonight.
A massive tsunami hit Sri Lanka's eastern and southern coasts, and over 30,000 people died. For a brief moment, the war paused, but the ceasefire broke down within months. In 2005, Mahinda Rajapaksa became president, and he pledged to end the war decisively. In 2006, the government launched its final campaign, a full military offensive to defeat the LTTE once and for all. By 2008, the LTTE had lost most of its territory, and in early 2009, they were cornered in a small coastal strip in the northeast. Tens of thousands of civilians were trapped. The government declared no fire zones, but fighting continued. Hospitals were shelled, and many civilians were killed. On May 18, 2009, Pravakaran was killed. The war was over, and the government declared victory. But peace came at a cost. At least 100,000 people died during the war. Over 300,000 were displaced in its final months, and human rights groups have accused both sides of war crimes, but accountability remains limited. Today, Sri Lanka is no longer at war, but the legacy of the conflict lingers. For many Tamils in the north and east, the scars remain: missing loved ones, land disputes, and military presence. Reconciliation has begun, but it is far from complete. This was a war that reshaped the nation, a war remembered in grief, silence, and still in hope.